Rusty's Cool Guitars presents Here for the Gear. So on today's episode of Here for the Gear, we're going to be talking about traveling with your gear. All kinds of gear, right, Dwayne?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so alongside for the road today, I do help with the discussion. We have Dwayne from the shop.
Hello.
And my name's Christopher. So let's just jump into it. You have gigs, I have gigs, right?
Yep.
And when you're loading out your 8-string, what are you usually putting it in?
I have a mono dual bag with both the 8 strings in it now. I've
Cool.
had that for about a year now.
Yeah, how do you like it?
It's convenient. It stands straight up on its own, which is like the coolest
Super
thing
nice,
about
yeah,
it.
right?
But it's got a great storage. Like there's a Velcro strap for my cables, and then there's a pouch for my ears and my my receiver, and then it's a great bag. I have a couple of mono bags, but that's my
your
main travel
use one?
bag. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what I'm doing, but I usually actually only have hard shell cases for guitars that if I sold them down the road, I would want that hard shell case because they're hard to find, like a 335 or Custom Shop 336 or Les Paul case. Like I have the original ones for those, but they all stay in gig bags when they're not. Well, no, those go back in hard cases when I'm not using them. But when I take them out on gigs, they go in either my mono gig bag for a singular one. I take the Vertigo most of the time. Or I also have Reunion Blues solo and then the Continental bags, which I have an early one that's leather dually, and then a modern one which is more of like a lighter weight fabric. It seems like it's very robust and ripstop type nylon, but very lightweight bag that I can carry 2 electrics in, plenty of storage. But we'll get into some of that here in a minute. The biggest thing I think that, gear wise, when we're carrying stuff out of the house to a location is we want our stuff to be protected the best we can be, right?
Yep.
I mean, back in the day, you could get, when you bought an amp, most people included like a vinyl dust cover or a slip cover. It's not super heavy duty, but it's something to put over the amp from travel so you don't get it scratched or nicked up. And
yeah, it always sucks when you get that first blemish in your Tolex.
Yeah, when the
it's
Tolex
like a
gets
heartbreak.
torn, or if the grill cloth gets a little tear in it. But ideally, your gigs bags and slip covers, we're going to cover that a little bit with amps too and speakers. They should provide protection and durability and reliability. And for that, I mean, to me, I want like my gear to show up intact in the bag or whatever case it's in, and it should function to protect the gear. I mean, right? Like, it's what good is a case if your thing's bouncing around in it? It's not really,
Yeah, that's
secured.
why I switched to the mono bags. I had a Roadrunner bag for years and years and years and years, and whatever guitar I was using, I would tote in that same bag. I got rid of road cases, like hard cases, a long time ago.
Yeah, so I think the last hard case I voluntarily used, probably about 6 years ago, I took out a Gibson Explorer for a couple of frat parties we were playing, and that wonderful guitar has to go in its original hard case because they don't really make gig bags for them.
Yeah. Odd-shaped guitars are always the worst.
And so instead I have this gigantic oblong case that I have to carry, and that gets me to my biggest reason, segues us into our next thing here, scenarios. Like, what kind of case would we recommend that you guys use, or ladies, for your equipment when you're traveling? So hard shell cases, like when I was a teenager, that's all I had, right? And then I thought it was really cool when I saw those really horrid triangular Gibson gig bags. Remember those with the single zipper that went all the way up and the white plush lining? There's absolutely no support in it, and a really dinky, crappy strap on the back of it. Yeah. But I was like, oh, that's a gig bag. It'll be so much easier to carry my guitar in that than have it in this big, hard case. Little did I know, so for practice, like, you might want to use a lighter weight gig bag, and that's where, to me, I would only use something like that. Even kind of the, I guess the SE level, like Paul Reed Smith bags you can find. Some people sell them used or whatnot. That's probably about as light as a bag as I would carry if I were carrying something out to a gig, or to just practice at somebody's house. Because I don't know. I mean, or if you have a better lightweight gig bag, put it in that. But grading wise, like I feel comfortable taking an acoustic even in like a crappy Cordura bag, because if it's just going from my house to a practice place, there's a difference between putting that in the back seat of the car and then putting it in the trunk with a bunch of other stuff. In that case, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and like acoustics is a bit different. You gotta have more protection in the cloth So like I had a really great acoustic bag for a long time. I had a black Guild Lefty, and the acoustic bag that I had like a hard top and hard sides and a hard back, but then it also had foam sewn in, so it was kind of like a hard bag.
Pseudo rigid,
Yeah.
So the ones I was talking about here, like I know I have for my kids, some of them have the really lighter weight bags, but they're like storing the guitar in their closet. They're not taking it anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like that's where you can skimp and have like a low end bag, in my opinion.
Yeah,
right?
to keep it from getting
Just
scratched when you're stuffing stuff
pretty much
in
a
with
glorified
it.
dust cover for your guitar, right?
Dust cover, yeah.
Yeah, but then like so, let's say you're going to your local gig. To me, that's where the Mono Vertigo totally excels. Great bag. Or you could go a little if you need to be a little more affordable. The Mono sleeves those are pretty
I have
practical
one
too.
The reason I got that was because the Roadrunner on the inside, there was no support in the neck,
Right.
and my strings would shred
the inside of the
inside of
interior.
it, and so every time I pulled the guitar out, it would be full of foam lint, and I'd have to sit there on stage and pick it off. It was really embarrassing after a while. It was
I
like,
bet.
man, this thing is not gonna last much longer. But I still have it. I love that bag.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when you're doing local gigs, you're probably going to have, if you're like us, sometimes you got to schlep your own PA in there. So probably got PA bouncing around in the back of the car, and then again, I drive a minivan, so I have a ton of space. But like the middle seat generally gets the guitars in the gig bags, and they're isolated. And if there's not stuff in the floor, I can put them on the ground between the front seat and the middle seat, and there's no equipment on top of it to fall onto it and hurt them. The biggest thing I think with these gig bags, like we're talking about, is protection for your instrument in the neck. To me, that's a huge thing because I kind of feel like, like a bolt-on neck guitar, you can kind of be, I don't want to say reckless with it, but you can be a little less hung up on it because if it falls, it's going to be okay inside that case. The set neck guitars, to me, that's really where the bigger issue comes in. So if your case isn't protecting it, providing shock protection and strength and rigidity around that neck joint, all sorts of bad nasties can happen with that.
Yeah, and those are temperamental in the first place.
I mean,
just
I've had
general lifespan.
Yeah, so
So
and
you
again,
gotta have the adequate
even
protection.
a good hard shell case for that matters. I had a guy ship me a guitar once that only came from like North Carolina to Virginia, right? And when it got there, he had put it in a hard case, but in the shipping box, he had left the top third unfilled with peanuts. So when I opened up the case after taking that out and getting peanuts all over my house, the neck was snapped because there's nothing to absorb the shock of that guitar bouncing around in that box.
Yeah.
So like, even though it was in a hard case, it was still technically broken.
That's horrible.
So yeah, and it was a guitar I just bought. I was looking forward to getting, and I got it, and it's broken. It's like, well, that's not any good to me. Got to go.
Well, the reason I got away from hard cases was I had a Jackson when I was a kid, and it came in the molded case, like the big rectangle, and it got crushed under pressure, and the plastic snapped and exposed the styrofoam
Yeah, on the
inside.
inside, yeah.
And it left a jagged edge, and I was like, well, I don't like these kinds of cases anymore, so I switched to those pleather ones, the generics rectangles. That you pick the guitar up and the damn thing slides from one corner to the other because the neck is not, the headstock is not braced, right? Because it's just a big empty cavity with the one square compartment for whatever, and that's what's bracing the neck when it's laying down. But you snap the lid shut and pull it up by the handle, and you can feel the guitar drop.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm done with that. I need fitted bags for at least one fitted bag that I can carry, and I'm the sound guy too, so I'm always carrying at least mains, if not wedges and trunks and everything.
Right, and
else.
so like with those, is it extra expense on top of your PA equipment? Yes, it is. But for me, I tell my wife, it's an investment, right? So
replacing a guitar is a much bigger investment than
but
a
I mean,
good
even
bag.
Good PAs too. Like I like having all my gear in bags because it's protected in and out of the load end. Does stuff get nicked up on the gig? Yeah, that happens. That's normal. But if I can minimize the wear and tear on it and make them last a little longer, like my QSCs have those nice functional slip covers where like they actually have a moisture cover so you can roll back and it's got mesh in front of the speaker so you don't have to take it off. It covers all your connections in the back too. You can still connect and run it with that on there if you needed to in case the weather's starting. That's awesome.
PA has got a lot more elaborate slip covers and stuff too. On our outside PA, we have RCF wedges, and they have.
Yeah, those are in body bags. I've seen.
They're in body, right? Yeah. And then the back has a clear compartment over that hangs over your electronics, and the electronics themselves are actually weather rated for that series.
Awesome.
Because they're outside, all elements type gear. They're fantastic, dude. The thing zips back and then it rolls up and Velcros to itself.
Yeah, so it's out of the way.
So if rain starts during a performance, we can literally just roll it down, zip it shut, and grab it by the handle, and it's off stage. It's struck.
Yeah.
In seconds, we can strike all the downstage mixes in 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's awesome. But that's what I'm talking about. So being prepared all the time really matters. For all you people who carry pedal boards and little gig bags, for those too, I'm going to talk about that in a second. One thing to pack in there that you may not think about, next time you're in your local grocery store, go to the vegetable section and get 2 or 3 of those like semi-transparent vegetable bags. And you don't have to open them up.
Take off the roll?
Yeah, take those, roll them up, put one in your pedal board bag. Why do I do that? Well, during summer season, if you're out and you got a storm coming up, I do a Nano or Nano Plus at the most when I'm playing for a pedal board. That will slide right over it with my cable still being intact. And I can still see through it to see my pedals, but now everything's covered and I don't have to carry a roll of saran wrap or any kind of thing like that. You say, well, what about you're probably not playing the gig? I've played some gigs where the weather's very questionable. If it's like lightly misting, you're going to have
It's going to rain in 2 hours if you're sweating.
And people are still going to hang out, and unless it's just totally storming guts. But so that kind of segues us a little bit into the next part of it. The most harrowing thing, and part of the reason I felt led to do this podcast, was I just got back from doing a wedding in Kentucky and we flew. So I had really the first time, and as an adult that I can think of, that I had to fly with an electric guitar on my back. And it was incredibly stressful, even though I did my research. So you can go online, you can look in the airport or whoever your carrier is, and they actually have rules and regulations for what you can and cannot carry. I don't know if you know this, you can't carry more than 20 batteries on your person on a plane flight. So, if you need lots of AA's for 9 volts, you can't have more than 20 of those on your person when you're flying if you're on Delta Airlines. I found that out reading through their policies, right? So anyway, they say that you're offered a courtesy closet to put your guitar in, or it can be put in the overhead compartment.
This is in the cab of the plane.
This is in the cab of the plane.
Okay.
Or if there's not room, you have to gate check it, where they scan you a tag and reference it to your ticket, and they store it under the plane last thing, first thing to come off when you land, and you get your instrument. Well, I flew with a Mono Vertigo with a tick bag on it, right, the 2.0 bag. And I had my Nano board in the back, and it was fully loaded with like my simplifier in case the amp we had at the place wasn't good enough, all that kind of stuff, and all my cabling. Well, the first flight on our first leg from Charleston to Atlanta, the lady said, "Oh, that's not going to go in the closet. There's no closet on this flight. You guys are going to have to check your instruments." There was no guarantee. Now, we were on the second group of boarding, every one of these flights. So we got on. The flight stewards were like, "Oh yeah, we got room for you guys in the closet." So my cohort, who took a Gator dual bag, he had a thin line Takamine in it and an Epiphone Les Paul on the other side. So he had both bases covered, but it's the same thickness as my mono bag.
Right.
Just kind of think about that, guys. Anyway, both of those went in the closet side by side. So that closet had space. It was ideal. We get to the next place, get to Atlanta, we unload, everything's good. We load onto the second plane, and that one, we ended up, there was another closet for us. We fit okay on that. They didn't give us any crap at the gate about it. When we're getting ready to come back home on Sunday, the first flight we got on, the flight lady was like, "Oh, I don't know if there's room in our closet for it." So Dave puts his in, gets his situated. He's like, "We can put yours in there, Chris, but we got to turn it upside down so there would be room." And I was like, "All right, well, let me take off." So I took the tick bag off of it because it wasn't going to fit in there. It changes the dimensions. Yeah. And then with my pretty much month-old exotic XSC Pro 2 inside that case, I'm voluntarily throwing it upside down into the closet.
Super strat.
Right, super strat, shoving it in there. And we try to close the door and it won't close. And she's like, might have to check it if it can't get that closed. And I was like, well, I think the straps are in the way. So I tucked the straps in very carefully. and very gingerly close the door, and she's able to seal it without any problem. I was like, okay, thank you. So go to my seat, put the tick bag under my passenger seat in front of me. We get to get off the plane, get off, everything's cool. Now, I still haven't checked the guitar, right? Like, I haven't opened up the case. I'm just, like, in the back of my head, I'm reattaching the mono, the tick to it, and I'm like, all right, be good. We get onto the last plane, or we're getting ready to board, and the lady at the gate's like, you both need to check your guitars. And we're like, well, we haven't yet, but sure. So they give us the tags again. We don't put them on our cases. We proceed down the boardwalk to the plane, because that's the gate person telling us this.
Right.
Now, kids, you don't have to follow the instructions at home, but I'm just telling you our experience. So when we got on the plane, we asked the flight attendants nicely, hey, is there a closet we can put these in? They open the closet. It's chock full of a whole bunch of other crap that's for the flight that doesn't even pertain to
Their
room.
stuff.
Yes, it's their stuff. So we had no room to put it in there. But these people were quite congenial and said, hey, you can put them in an overhead compartment if you like. Whereas the other people said, no, you couldn't do
Right.
that. So we grabbed one whole overhead compartment. And again, I took the tick off because it didn't lay in there very easily. But we pretty much sandwiched both the guitars on top of each other in the cases. And that closed it up. Got back to Charleston, unpacked them about 9 o'clock Sunday night. I think we got in at like 5. 9, I finally opened up the bag just to, start unpacking, get ready for this week, and the guitar's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
No problems, no issues, no anything. So is that the case? Is that the exception or the norm? I don't know what to tell you guys.
I feel like getting overhead compartment for 2 guitars is definitely an exception.
That's kind of how I feel. And I say that because there was
a score.
When we got off the plane, someone had one of those lighter Fender style thin gig bags. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
That had been checked, and they had pulled it up and put it on the ramp as we were exiting. And I was like, God, I hope that guy's instrument's okay, because that case to me is not something
That's a
I would
slip cover.
ever. Yeah, I wouldn't want that over my amp or over my guitar. So you brought that into the next thing here. We'll circle back around to other flying ways. Slip covers for amplifiers to me are well worth the investment, right? Let's just say, case in point. So I have a great headstrong.
Before you go there, I have a story.
Yeah, shoot. I'm ready.
ESP, their gig bag
Yeah.
looks like a trapezoid that they just folded in half and put a zipper on it.
Nice.
So I physically collided with George Lynch in a casino in Las Vegas. He was there and he had
Mr.
his
Scary.
Yeah, and he had his ESP bag on his back, and I was like, boom, and I looked at him and I was like, holy shit, George Lynch, I'm so sorry that I ran into you, George Lynch. It was like the most surreal kind of experience. And he's like, no problem, bud. Just kind of kept on with his agenda for the day. But yeah, that's how I know the shape of an ESP
Nice. Of the bag.
bag.
Right
Anyway.
on. Very cool. Well, so like I was talking about, with slip covers, I feel like you spend all this money either on your PA equipment or your amplifier. And it doesn't matter whether you have an expensive amp or a really high-end boutique amp. To me, it's like anything else. If you take care of it, it will take care of you, right? So, with that being said, I always, at the minimum, want a slip cover, and I would go either with like Studio Slips or Tukey. The Tukey used to be here; they got sold, and I think the company is like Michigan or somewhere now. I don't know. I don't remember. Anyhow, Tukey makes a very good thick bag. Some folks don't like them because when you take them off of your amp, it will actually stand up on its own because it's that rigid of a padded material
Flip
they
it
use,
upside
which
down
is
and keep
great.
all your stuff in it.
Yeah, and they include the Velcro to latch it if you want to snug it up so that it won't slide off your amp in the back of your car. Whereas Studio Slips, if you want that, it's a little bit extra. But Studio Slips also makes, and I hadn't owned one until a couple of years ago. I used to have a car Mercury that came in a clamshell cover. And that's literally what it is. You place the amp inside the bottom of the bag, and it folds up around it and zips all the way around it, and it's like a clamshell. Covers the whole thing up.
Nice.
It's amazing, So like, I had a 25 or 20-year-old Western Tolex covered amplifier that looked still relatively new because of that slip cover that
Nice.
the original owner had invested in to get it. So
Yeah.
I think they're very, very well worth it. Most of them can have pockets added if you want to do that kind of thing, so you can store your IEC cables or any extra stuff you want. To me, I don't like to have extra things in the bag just because it's more crap to deal with getting lost somewhere else. I have other places I put that stuff. But, when you're moving the rack case, for example, I have a rack case for my power unit because I don't want to just carry the power thing by itself. I have a Furman power conditioner. I don't want that I could lay it on the floor and plug it into the wall and be fine, but it looks nicer in the rack, and it allows me to have my wirelesses in a rack all powered cleanly, and you know,
Right.
I mean, that's kind of being anal. But again, we spend all this money on gear, and wanting to be able to, when I hit go on the power and I'm ready to start playing, I don't want to hear anything break down and tear up. Well, why? How did I keep that from
Something
happening?
I got to troubleshoot all the
Yeah,
time.
I invest the money in doing that. You know, with guitars and amps, especially if you're doing, like, if you're fortunate enough to be doing bus tours, where you're on like big Prevost buses or even vans, you might consider doing hard shell cases or even road cases with wheels for your amps, because it's going to make your amp last a whole lot longer. You know, should you just immediately power it off, throw it in the case and roll it? No. If it's a tube amp, let it cool for a little bit, then box it up, get it ready to go. It doesn't matter if it's slipcover or not. You know, if you're solid state, you don't have to worry about that. But it's just good general practice with a tube amp to do that. And be gentle like you would moving anything else.
Fragile.
Don't be tossing that stuff. So we're gonna bring up a story here that I read once upon a time, and
It's my
hopefully
favorite
the
story.
great Deke Dickerson will actually reach out to us if he has anything contrary to this. But I read where he said he was so tired of always stressing out and worrying about getting guitars on and off plates and having them broken or torn up in travel, because, you know, again, they get chucked if you put them in a checked box. So here's something else I read. If your guitar, when you go on an airlines, is in a hard shell case, ATA approved or otherwise, they are going to make you check it because it's in a hard case. So they feel like it's protected. Now, if you've ever seen like the G&G or Fender style cases, G&L cases where the old ones, it's just the three little latches, you know, the one toggle latch and then the two springy ones.
Yep.
I don't ever trust this. When I was in high school, my brand new Fender Strat Plus that I had was a jazz band practice my freshman year of high school, right? My case was sitting on a row of those plastic chairs they have in every high school, right? And it was open. Well, somebody, horn player, walked by and knocked the case down. One of those latches hit the floor just the right way when it fell. It snapped it. Gone. Clean.
Dang.
Done. Like, so brand new case, just totally trashed and gone.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be what's protecting your guitar on the daily, right? So nowadays, like my Exotic that I just got has an awesome ATA flight case that I could have carried that guitar in, but I would have had to be content knowing that's going in the boot of a plane. Underneath here, it's going to get really cold down there. I'm going to have to take it out and worry about it. I'm going to have to worry about some jerk opening it up that might want to take a peek at it, dropping on the runway. I don't know. Anything can happen.
Anything.
And you can't really, can I lock it? Yeah, sure, but TSA's got to be able to get in there because God forbid they think you're doing something wrong. You know what I mean?
And also, things just go missing at the airport,
Yeah,
and it
all
takes
the
you 3
time.
weeks to get any information on
Right,
it.
so-
and that's just laundry.
So let's circle back to Deke. So his whole thing, from what I read in this article, was when he goes to travel, especially like internationally, when he goes to like Spain or Europe, he takes a bolt-on neck electric. I believe it's a Telecaster. I could be wrong.
So awesome.
And disassembles it at the house, right? Take the strings off, unbolt that neck, put all the parts in a Ziploc baggie, maybe carry a couple of extras in another part. I would do that just out of paranoia that they might get lost in the flight, right? But he takes this and he puts it inside of his regular luggage with his clothing, right? So, I mean, granted, if your nudie suit's got a bunch of rhinestones on it, you probably don't want your really nice, you know, custom shop Tully body right up against it.
But it's matching rhinestones.
But it's matching rhinestones, yeah, I do. So look at the road phone there. But you can wrap it up and have it in your luggage, and then when he gets to the destination, he's got to go play. Well, got a fresh set of strings, reassemble the guitar.
It's
You
brilliant.
know, you string it up and go do your thing, take it apart, put it back in there, and go back home.
I could
It's-
totally do this with my 8 strings.
And after doing this last trip and kind of really seriously being quite paranoid about it the whole time, it was very nice to think that maybe that's what I'll do my next time I make this happen. All right, so like I was saying, breaking down that guitar and putting it in a suitcase just seems like such a logical.
When
more
you told me
logical way
the
to
story,
do
I
it.
was like, why isn't that a common practice all around the world?
Right, maybe we should design our own line of suitcases so you could, you know, put a broken down Strat or Telecaster in there.
The
and just,
lid
you know,
where you normally put your like suit jackets in
Yeah.
separate,
Sure.
it flips
Yeah.
down and it's like a foam cut Strat.
Yes. Here's my Strat. My neck
With the
and my body.
neck goes in
Well,
an angle.
All right, guys, we have to copyright that, so none of you guys do it. Or if you do, give us dibs on it because we
That's
gave you the
right.
idea.
We get 10%.
Yeah. So I think that's a really great way to go. You know, if you have the wherewithal or the means to make it happen, Pelican cases are not a bad idea to put your gear into. You know,
There's a lot of guys that fly with the portable, like the X Air that I use, or the M Air. They have an MR32, which is the Midas preamps. But some guys will travel with that in a Peli instead of having it racked on wheels because it's more convenient.
Yeah, it's more portable and useful. Yep. That's the kind of thing. So really, it's up to you. We did have a customer come in here a couple of weeks ago. Remember, he brought in that rolling flight case that he bought. It holds like 3 guitars in it vertically, and he flew to Charleston with it and brought that case here. It had, you know, kind of looked like the oversized golf bag to some degree.
It does. It looks like a golf bag, and your guitars stand up in it.
Yeah, but they're protected, and they are not, you know, obviously that guitar I think was set neck, right? That he had, and it had probably been shuffled around in movement. And
those cases are great on like tours.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of loading and unloading of trucks. You know, load-ins, load-outs is part of the sound guy lifestyle, and there's some pretty clever dudes on the road. Like, my favorite thing was these guys have all of their bass and both of their guitar players racked up, like strapped in a golf cart, and it rolls onto the truck and off the truck already rigged together, and they just stick it between their drum riser and their keyboard riser.
Nice.
And everything's mic'd. They run a one loom of cables and power to that beer cart.
Right.
And I'm like, bro, if I ever go on tour, I'm not even spending money on flight cases. We're rack mounting, or we're mounting it all on a fucking beer cart.
Yeah, be done. Quick and easy. That's the thing, right? So you want to be able. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of the mono gear for me. One, I feel like my guitar was totally protected, and I had the pocket on that Vertigo totally loaded, man. I packed, so it had my 2 10-foot cables that I'd use as kind of like one to go from the pedal board to the amp, the other one as the backup on stage in case my 2 wireless units that I had, those took a dump, right? So I had redundancy upon redundancy, plus I put another 20-foot spare cable in my actual outdoor, my suitcase bag to have as an extra in case I needed it. And I forgot to take it the night of the gig. That's the best part of that. You know, same with the mic cable I had in there. I didn't take that either. They sat in the hotel room. But I didn't need them, which is great. But the take bag was beautiful because I actually used a Nano, you know, playing a pedal train in a mono bag. Well, I had that way before I had the tick, so they fit in the same bag in case you didn't know that. And so I had my power supply in there, an extra 2 power supply cables, so I had one and a redundant one in case that broke, because again, I'm kind of anal and I want to make sure. I'm out of state. I don't know where the local music shop is, even though I went to a bunch of guitar stores. But you can't always trust people to have what you need.
Right.
So my Seox uses that funky 3-circle IEC plug versus the more hexagonal one that most everybody else has. So that's one of those. That's why I had 2 of them, because they're hard to find. It's not something you find on the regular.
Right.
Yes, you can go to Amazon and find them, guys. I know that.
But you can't go to the store in that town and find it that day. First try. It's just not.
I had that bag totally packed up. It had an extra capo, earplugs in it, a couple of extra patch cables, if I remember right. But all of that stuff was self-contained, and it all arrived perfectly intact. And like that simplifier's got 4 or 5 switches on it. None of those got broken off. It does the job. It protected my gear. And at the end of the day, when we're moving our stuff around, that's the whole purpose of the case. It's not to be an obnoxious, heavy thing to put stickers on, which you can.
Yeah.
But it's really there to protect your investment in your equipment. So think about the next time you go to buy a gig bag or a case. Like, would you rather splurge and spend the extra $20-$30 and get something a little more robust that's comfortable and roadworthy, or do you want to go with the cheap factor? The problem with that is, someone had a cheap gig bag for one of their speakers the other night, and the handle on that strap had totally snapped off and was completely useless. Well, that makes it harder to tote when there's not really a handhold, and the strap you're supposed to be holding it isn't holding it because it's broken on one side. Yeah. So
my mono bag was an investment. That double bag was not an.
Yeah, they're not cheap. But they're also. I mean, again, like I said,
it's
worth the protection.
It's got I'd say probably a 6 or 8 inch wide Velcro pouch that wraps my neck to the neck brace on both sides, and that pouch has a clear zipper so you can keep picks in it or business cards or whatever you need. And then it's got a pouch at the top that I keep my spray and some more picks and my strings and my spare mic and like a couple things. And then there's a main pouch, and I've already mentioned that's where I keep all my cables and my earbuds and everything. And it's like ample storage in that thing. It's really designed to only have to carry that and whatever you're playing through.
Yeah, and that's
It really
my
is
acoustic
totally-
Vertigo bag does the same thing. It's got that top outer pocket that's small, and you can put some stuff in it, and then it's got the bigger lower pouch and the inside zipper pocket of that, so you actually have 2 storage units in that.
And before that, I had a carry-all that I roll, and I still carry the carry-all, but it's a lot lighter now because I migrated a lot of my what I felt like were necessities on the road as a
for
sound
the guitar
guy.
stuff and
Guitar and sound,
right?
but those things have migrated into other containers now because I can rely more on the mono bag, keeping all of my guitar stuff in the mono bag at all times. So anytime I'm gonna go play, I know just grab the mono bag and it'll be there when I pull up.
Yeah, that's really, really great. So let's talk about gig bag hacks. And what I mean by that is, like, you were talking about all the stuff you're carrying outside in your mono bag, right, for your
Right.
dual guitars. For me, like, I always have to have, like, a peg winder in there. I don't necessarily carry string cutters because that doesn't matter to me on a gig. 9 times out of 10, I just want to get it restrung and go. But I kind of avoid that because most of the time I try to. If I have a gig, I tend to change strings at the beginning of the week before the gig of the weekend, right? And also, if your guitar's breaking strings, there's something generally wrong with it, so don't keep restringing it.
It's a spur.
Generally, yes, it's a spur. So go see a good tech and get your stuff fixed. But no, so like my mic cables, dude, I'm very organized and kind of anal about how I want my stuff. But I use a 5-gallon bucket with a handle on it, and all my XLRs when I go do like the hip hop band I'm in. It's 5-piece, and everybody's got to get mic'd, and sax, horns, and keys, all that silliness. So I need to have cabling for them because they can't always provide their own. Somebody's broke or blah blah blah. But all my cables sit in there, and they're all lassoed with their own Velcro and nice and neat. And you can just get a bunch of them in there. I mean, I probably have like 25 in that.
Oh
case,
yeah. Are they over and under, where you got a slot all the way down the middle where you can store more stuff?
I have tried that, but it's mainly for the for my drum mic stand that I carry in there that breaks down. So you can put the kick mic in there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, like, so for my solo gigs, I have an older, small traveling suitcase, rolling suitcase, right? And it's got my mixer inside of it with some padding around it and stuff, and then all my power supplies, backup power supply, cabling, both for mics and to go to the front of the house, all my stuff all in one unit, so I don't have to have that piecemeal and assemble it on site.
Yeah.
And because it's modular, it's so much easier to put it in the back of the van and go. I have a small tote that has extra IECs and power cords in the back of the van in case I ever need them.
Right.
I don't have to go, let me go get some other bag. I already know where it is. To me, those kind of things are huge to have, because when you're on site at a gig, that's the last thing you want to be thinking is, oh crap, do I have to go to the convenience store or your Home Depot, Lowe's, and grab an extra 50-footer? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
any number of things like that. So I'm a big fan of preparing ahead of time and kind of thinking worst case scenario. And the thing is, if you've already pre-packed your bag and stuff for all that, then when you get to the gig and that does happen, you're already ready to go.
And you know where that spare is.
Yeah, it doesn't take you out of your element and being, behind an 8 ball of time. Oh gosh, we're getting ready to play and I don't have this together. Because there's nothing worse than getting to a gig and finding something broken.
Or you forgot.
Yeah. Well, like, case in point where a slipcover might have been nice. I didn't have one once for a TV appearance I did in Richmond. And I had just haphazardly put my, at the time, Electro-Harmonix, what they call it, the 22 caliber or something. And it's just a 22 watt solid state amp in a pedal size format, right? It has a little wall wart you plug in. And anyway, I had a Dr. ZZ28 that I was going to play with the band that day. And when I unloaded it between the van and the studio floor, because it wasn't a slipcover, something hit the back panel where the fuse was located, and the fuse cap and fuse were AWOL, and I could not find them.
And you're dead in the water. You have no amp.
Right, and we're going live in like 10 minutes. Jeez. So crack open the bag, plug that in directly into the speaker in the cabinet. Sure, there's no pilot light on the amp, but nobody's any the wiser.
Right.
Because it still sounds like I'm playing
guitar
because they hear a guitar there. So that's what I'm talking about. You got to be prepared all the time, I think, because again, it shows whoever you're working for, hey, I know what's coming, and I'm prepared for anything, and that's a big deal.
Cases are a big deal. If you're gigging more than occasionally, if you're gigging more than a few times a year, like my story is, and I don't even remember who it was, but somebody threw all their drums and amps and everything into the back of one of the band members' SUVs and drove to the club. And when they were unloading it to go get on stage, the hi-hat stem had poked through the grill cloth and the speaker cone.
Ugh.
And it's like, okay, well, so what do you guys want to do for the show tonight? Because you're basically, as a team, deciding how to troubleshoot at this moment. You're literally not prepared for your show now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and a slip cover would have prevented that from happening.
Or
a drummer that carries his hardware in a
bag. Yeah, even a simple duffel bag. Broken down. I mean, that's, again, those kind of things, being prepared and having your stuff where you need it, really, really helps for I don't know how people function when they're just like pulling stuff out of left and right and it's a discombobulated mess. Like, I just threw everything in here and I'm gone. If that works for you, cool, run it. But for me, I want to be able to go look at it. Kind of gets into like even basic maintenance. If you have a pedal board, no matter what size, once a year, at least get in there and put some deoxit on all your, wipe down all the tips on your jack connectors so that everything's clean. You can wiggle them, make sure there's no shorts when you're playing through it, so you kind of identify ahead of time what problems you may have. Because there's nothing worse, right, than being on a gig and I know you don't use a ton of pedals, but if you step on that pedal and all of a sudden your signal chain goes dead because it wasn't plugged in right, or the jack, the patch cable was a little faulty. Those kind of things are big. They can be gig breakers, and
they can. And I've seen it happen a lot.
Yeah, and when it takes you out of your element,
in the middle of a song, the guy's playing a solo, and then he's got to crouch down and start snatching jumper cables out
to find out what's going on
because his guitar signal's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And it's like, man, this doesn't look good or sound good. You should try to prevent that kind of thing.
Yeah, again, so always being prepared, and it is really, really good with that. So, here at Rusty's, we carry mono gig bags and Vertigo, every kind of bag they make. We also carry all the pedal train gear, which is, to me, priceless for carrying your pedal boards around. Again, I think we've talked about it on a couple of podcasts. I have a bunch of different boards for different things. I use a big, long Nano Plus or Nano Max for my acoustic solo because I like everything in a row. It's quick and easy to have my vocal harmonizer, my looper, and my all-in-one acoustic thing. And then, a smaller band gig where I'm doing side guitar stuff, I just need like a tuner, a delay, maybe a mild overdrive.
Yeah, you don't want to carry a 4-foot long
I don't need
plank.
Do we have those? Yes. And you remember that board I built out for that guy a couple of weeks ago?
Oh yeah, that was brilliant.
Giant pedal train classic, like their biggest one. I don't remember what the name was, but it was like a 4-foot board, I think, right? It had a rolling case and everything, like a flight case. Way more board than anything I would want to carry, but that guy's stuff was protected. That was the whole reason he moved up to that.
And if you're doing the Weekend Warrior or even on a tour where you're out for 90 days and you don't come home, that's the absolute way to go.
Yeah, because again,
it's
like you said,
everything industrial strength, like tour ready, pro level.
Yeah, everything's an investment, right? You say, really but hold on, man, I can't get into that right away. You can. You kind of have to go, make the sacrifices. Do you need 3 really great guitars, or do you need to save that money for that third one?
Do you need a 4th great distortion pedal?
Yeah, I digress. But you get the idea, man. That's where it's really important to have that. The guy that we built that giant board out for had done a homebrew board he made out of wood, but it was heavy as a brick. You remember it?
Yeah.
And he'd custom mounted his power supply under it, and it was actually just a power strip with wall warts.
Yeah.
But he was like, I want to clean this up and make it lighter, and that's what that pedal train did. So, I can't. To me, I if there's solutions to problems, I want to use them, and that's kind of what those things do. They provide very good solutions for that. So.
It's hard to carry a board around with pedals on it too, because the Velcro will come off, and then or the cables will come unplugged or whatever, and then you got to reassemble it. You got to reassemble it when you get to the venue. It's like you might as well just.
It's nicer to have it in a bag or a case and open it up, and there it is.
Yep.
And I've seen plenty of people when I first started. Coming out of high school, I took an old, oblong suitcase my dad had and gutted it. Took a drill bit, drilled holes on both ends, and created a pedal board in there because I didn't have anything else to do. And then when I flipped it up, it had my name on it facing out to the crowd. You know, I didn't run a big board, but I had protection at that point. And was it, you know, like the best looking aesthetically? Probably not, but it did that purpose of, hey, I saved up a lot of money to buy the pedals that I had at the time on there, and I didn't want to mess them up, and I could keep them in order and always had it ready to go, which to me, at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to be able to go plug in and play and turn your stuff on, it works first time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, well, I guess, you know, as far as slipcovers go, we talked about that. You can get all sorts of different kinds. They make them for all of your PA equipment, no matter what kind of vendor you got it from, you know, Bose, Personas, QSC, RCF, all those guys, Turbo Sound. Everybody makes slipcovers, and you can get them, and they're just, again, good investments for your investment.
There's also crafty people that make them on Etsy and stuff like
Yeah,
that. I've
and,
seen
you know,
people take moving blankets
Yeah.
and make custom road bags, like
Yeah.
slip covers for guitar amps, and they look incredible because they're all black and
Yeah.
they're the quilted stitching and everything looks really pro.
Yeah, if you can find your local people, it's always good to support those folks. And, you know, it's definitely a nice touch to have that on your equipment, I think. But, all right, so if you guys need any cases or, you know, gig bags, that kind of stuff, come over here to Rusty's and check us out. We don't keep the monos on the website just because, like, yeah, we don't. I don't know. Having a page of just case accessories, I don't know. We just don't. Maybe we'll do that someday.
But you can reach out to us on the
That's
website.
right, and we can ship it to you, so you can call us and ask what we have in stock, and we take care of that for you. But for Rusty's, this is Chris. I'm going to sign off. What do you say, Dwayne?
Take it easy, folks.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys later. Bye.
We love your comments. Please email us at rustyscoolguitars@outlook.com if you have questions about the show or any of the items we discussed. We're available 24/7. www.rustyscoolguitars.com. Thanks for your support.